Hey, what's going on, guys? The Horror Man back with my video response to CarnageCandy's Scream Tag. This is a 10-question tag about the Scream franchise, created by CarnageCandyy. I'm going to leave the channel link below. Question number 1. What is your favorite movie in the Scream franchise? This is definitely an easy one for me, without a doubt, the original. Question number 2. What is your least favorite film in the Scream franchise? I'm going to have to go with Scream 4 on this one, but it wasn't easy, because I love all 4 of these films. And I actually saw all of them on opening day in the theater. This is one of my favorite horror franchises, but if I have to choose my least favorite of the 4, then it would be Scream 4. Question number 3. Who is your favorite killer in the Scream franchise? This was actually another easy one for me. It's definitely Roman from Scream 3. He's the one that started it all. If you've seen the movies, then you know what I'm talking about. If it weren't for Roman, there would be no other killers to choose from. So he's the obvious choice in my mind. Not only that, but he's also the toughest of all the killers. He takes a lot of punishment and he just keeps coming. And then also there's that scene when you think he's dead in Scream 3, and I have to say, I actually fell for it the first time I watched the movie. It's one of those scenes you kind of watch a second, third, fourth time after, and you kind of wonder why you fell for it in the first place, but I really did. When I saw this for the first time, I really believed he was dead. Didn't think he was the killer at that point, obviously. It got me. And then, of course, when he's finally revealed to be the killer and explains his reasoning and all that, it all makes sense. And again, he just takes a lot of punishment from Sidney, and just keeps coming back. I love that scene where he pops back up and he's screaming and she's just shooting and shooting and shooting. And he's just screaming and taking the shots. It's a crazy scene. And like I said, he's the one that started it all. If Roman didn't, put this whole scheme in motion in the first place, you wouldn't have Billy, you wouldn't have Stu, which means you wouldn't have Mrs. Loomis and Mickey, and, you wouldn't have all of this happening, which means you wouldn't have, the killers in Scream 4. So, yeah, definitely Roman, Scream 3. Question number 4. Who is your least favorite killer in the franchise? I'm going to have to go with Charlie from Scream 4 on this one. It's nothing against him. It's just he's sort of Jill's pawn. He's not one of the main killers as I like to consider them. I consider the main killers to really be Billy, who brought along Stu to help out. Then you have Mrs. Loomis in Scream 2, who sort of brought along Mickey to help her out. And then Roman does it on his own in Scream 3, which is another reason why I think he's the best killer in the franchise. And then in Scream 4, you have Jill as the main villain, and she has, Charlie as her sidekick. So Charlie's sort of on the level with Mickey and Stu for me, but I don't know. Mickey was a bit more menacing, I guess. I think he took a lot more punishment. And Stu was funnier, and I know a lot of people see that as a negative, but I just enjoy his character in the first Scream. So have to go with Charlie as my least favorite killer. Question number 5. What is your favorite mask? Well, it's this one. No, but really, I'm going to have to go with the mask from the original Scream. And I keep thinking about the scene when you first see it, in Drew Barrymore's death scene in the opening, when the mask just pops up in the window and she sees it for the first time. I remember thinking initially that it was sort of silly, this silly looking ghost mask, but that feeling passed almost immediately, and it somehow became menacing. So it just worked. I love that mask. That's a very memorable scene, and I have to go with that one. Question number 6. Who is your favorite of the original 3 characters? Now, in case you're somehow unaware, we're referring to Sidney, Dewey, and Gale. For me, out of the original 3, my favorite character is definitely Dewey. I think he's a great character. He's silly and quirky, yet heroic at the same time. And I just love that scene at the end of Scream 2 when you find out he's still alive. Question number 7. Do you like Scream, the TV series? Well, I've never seen it. Question number 8. Do you have any Scream collectibles? To be honest, I really don't. Other than this Scream collection I have here in front of me, that comes with the mask and all 4 films, I really don't have anything too collectible when it comes to Scream. I have the Mystery Mini Ghostface. I did have the Funko Pop at one point before I sold my Funko Pop collection. A couple posters maybe here and there, but I have nothing really collectible. I like collectibles, don't get me wrong, but if I'm going to spend money, I typically rather spend it on, more DVDs or more Blu-rays or VHS tapes or books, rather than buying a collectible that has to do with something else that I could buy. I much rather have the movie in my collection than have a collectible for a movie that I like. Sometimes I do get collectibles for gifts, maybe Christmas and birthdays and that sort of thing, but at this point, I really don't have any Scream collectibles. Question number 9. Do you want there to be a Scream 5? And if so, who would you want to direct it? Well, if you've watched my videos in the past, then you know my stance on sequels. I love them. Keep them coming. There can never be enough sequels in a franchise that I love. It's just how I feel, and I'm sticking to it. So yeah, I would definitely love to see a Scream 5. And unfortunately, Wes Craven has passed, and he directed the first 4 films. They're sort of his babies in a way, and I understand that. But, especially when it comes to slasher films, I mean, how many directors do we have for the Halloween franchise, for the Friday the 13th franchise, for A Nightmare on Elm Street? It can be done. But if I could choose, I'd say Kevin Williamson himself. He wrote Scream 2, and he wrote Scream 4. I'd love for him to obviously write Scream 5, and he may as well direct as well. I know he only directed Teaching Mrs. Tingle, which he also wrote, but he's directed before, he can do it again. So, rather than introduce somebody new to the franchise, let's just have him direct his own script. Kevin Williamson would be my pick. And the final question, question number 10. If there were a Scream 5, how would you feel about the original 3 being killed off? Well, to be honest, I really wouldn't want it to happen. I mean, if it had to happen, then I'd say maybe one of the 3 I'd be okay with. Probably not Sidney. I obviously wouldn't want Dewey killed off either, since he's, as I said, my favorite character. But I wouldn't want all 3 of them gone. I think that would just be really jumping the gun. And, I definitely wouldn't want to see that happen. The only way I'd want to see Sidney die would be maybe if she went nuts and was the killer in the 5th film. Then that would make sense. Maybe, killing her at the end. I mean, at this point, how could she not be going crazy after having this many different killers after her? So I kind of feel like that's where the franchise was going to end up at some point. That was just kind of in my own mind. I always saw it ending with Sidney just kind of going nuts and becoming the killer. So in that sense, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing Sidney killed off, but other than that, I really wouldn't want to lose any of the original 3, and if we had to see it, then, I'd be okay with maybe losing one of them, but if not, then you're going into a whole different direction, and you're going to have a whole new cast if you were to have a Scream 6 and 7 and so forth. So, I'm not holding my breath. I don't think we're going to get a Scream 5, but if we did, that's what I'd want to see. Alright guys, that's it for my video response to CarnageCandy's Scream Tag. My buddy Jason from Horrific Nightmares is actually the one who mentioned this one to me. I wasn't actually tagged. I don't think CarnageCandyy actually tagged anybody in the video, so I'm just going to leave this one open as well. If anybody wants to participate in this, please feel free. Thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it.